Growing up in a middle-class family in suburban Chicago, my life was pretty straightforward. My dad, Frank, spent 30 years on the police force before retiring, and my mom, Diane, still works as an administrative assistant at Lincoln Elementary. They gave me everything they could, but we were never wealthy. I'm Audrey Winters. Well, I was before I became Audrey Harrison. After graduating from State College with an accounting degree I'd earned on scholarship, I landed a job at Anderson & Partners, a mid-sized accounting firm. The pay was decent enough to slowly chip away at my student loans, the work was steady, and I thought that would be my life: wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. Then came that rainy Friday in October when I literally crashed into Elliot inside the cafe at Riverview Tower. I was rushing to get my morning coffee before work, juggling my laptop bag and wallet, when I slammed right into him near the counter. My laptop tumbled from my hands, crashing directly onto his sleek device that was sitting open on a nearby table. Both screens shattered with a sickening crack, and I felt my stomach drop as I realized I'd also knocked his half-finished presentation completely offline. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, mortified as I stared at the destroyed electronics. "I'll pay for the repairs, I swear," I said. My hands trembled, calculating the cost that would probably wipe out my savings. Instead of the anger I expected, he laughed, surprisingly relaxed for someone whose expensive device I'd just destroyed. "Don't worry about it. Though you could make it up to me by having lunch with me tomorrow." That lunch turned into dinner the following week, and then another. Elliot was different from anyone I'd dated before. He was the son of Walter and Beatrice Harrison, owners of Harrison Enterprises, one of the largest manufacturing companies in the Midwest. But initially, he never made me feel less than him. He seemed fascinated that I came from what he called a surreal family, one that ate dinner together and actually talked about their day. Everything changed when he posted our relationship status on Instagram and then took me to meet his parents at their mansion in Lake Forest. I'll never forget scrolling through the comments section that morning, seeing his mother's perfectly curated profile leaving a thinly veiled "how quaint" comment. Followed by relatives I'd never met questioning if I was Audrey Winters from Westbrook High. The scholarship girl? When we arrived at the mansion that evening, Beatrice Harrison looked me up and down like I was something she'd found stuck to her designer shoe. The home was intimidatingly perfect, staged like it was ready for an architectural magazine shoot at any moment. "So, Audrey," she said, swirling her wine glass and casually checking her manicure, "Elliot tells us you're an accountant at some firm downtown?" "Yes, I am," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady while feeling completely out of place among their crystal and fine art. "How practical," she said with a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And your parents? What do they do again?" she asked. When I told her about my dad being a retired police detective and my mom working at an elementary school, her eyebrows lifted so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. Walter Harrison barely acknowledged my presence during dinner, speaking only to Elliot about quarterly projections and market expansion. When Elliot proposed 6 months later during a weekend trip that he documented extensively on social media, I said yes, ignoring the knot in my stomach. The wedding was a lavish affair that appeared in local society pages, something his parents insisted upon. The Harrisons attended with frozen smiles and stiff congratulations, posing perfectly for every photographer. I thought I could win them over with time. I believed that love would be enough. After our honeymoon in Bali, Elliot and I moved into his luxury condominium in downtown Chicago. I immediately noticed how he documented every corner of our new place on Instagram, tagging interior design accounts and using hashtags like #LuxuryLiving and #DreamHome. The place was 3 times the size of my parents' entire house, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan and designer furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. I felt like I was living in a showroom rather than a home. 2 months after we married, I discovered I was pregnant. Instead of telling Elliot in person, I found myself planning the perfect Instagram pregnancy announcement at his insistence, complete with professionally taken photos of us holding a tiny pair of baby shoes. Elliot was ecstatic, spinning me around our massive living room after we hit post, and the likes started flooding in. Even Beatrice and Walter seemed to soften a little at the news, though Beatrice couldn't resist commenting publicly, thrilled to finally have a true Harrison heir. #family legacy #good genes. Privately, during a family dinner, she whispered to me, "Well, at least the child will have good breeding on one side." Our son, Lucas, Elliot insisted on naming him after his grandfather, was born just before Christmas. The delivery room had barely cleared when Elliot was already posting perfectly filtered photos of our heir, tagging expensive baby brands and his family's company. But the moment I held Lucas in my arms, nothing else mattered, not Beatrice's constant criticisms delivered through passive-aggressive text messages, not the whispers at Harrison Enterprises parties about the accountant who married the boss's son. Lucas, with his tiny fingers and curious eyes, was perfect. Those first 2 years were actually good. Elliot took to portraying the perfect father online, posting photos of himself playing with Lucas, reading him bedtime stories, taking us both to the park on weekends. And surprisingly, those moments were genuine. He was thriving as financial director at Harrison Enterprises, while I worked part-time from home as an accountant, juggling spreadsheets and baby bottles. Beatrice and Walter might not have liked me, but they doted on their grandson, showering him with expensive gifts that always seemed to arrive with a photographer to document the moment for their social media profiles. But somewhere around Lucas's 3rd birthday party, an extravagant affair that appeared in a local lifestyle magazine, things started to change. I began noticing Elliot's Instagram check-ins at restaurants and events that he'd never mentioned to me. He started coming home later and later, always with the same excuse, "Big project at work, honey." You wouldn't understand. The man who used to rush home to see his son now barely made it for bedtime. Then came that Thursday when I received a notification from Beatrice on Instagram. Her message was cold, "Would you care to explain why you weren't tagged in any of the company's annual gala posts last night?" I stared at my phone, confused. I scrolled through Elliot's profile and felt my heart sink as I saw dozens of photos from an elegant event I knew nothing about. "What gala?" I typed back, my fingers trembling. "Don't play dumb, Audrey," came her swift reply. "The Harrison Enterprises Anniversary Gala." Every executive and their spouse was featured in the company's social media coverage except you. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the event hashtag, seeing Elliot smiling in photo after photo. "I didn't know about any gala," I typed, the words feeling hollow on the screen. Beatrice's response was swift, "Elliot posted that you weren't feeling well. Are you telling me my son lied to 15,000 followers? That would be quite problematic for our brand image." I waited up that night, sitting in our dark living room scrolling through every tagged photo from the event until Elliot came home at 11:30. He loosened his tie as he walked in, stopping short when he saw me. "Why didn't you tell me about the gala?" I asked quietly, holding up my phone with his posts displayed. He sighed, pouring himself a scotch from the crystal decanter. "Look, Audrey, let's be honest," he said, not meeting my eyes. "You wouldn't have fit in. You have no idea how to carry yourself at these events." He took a long sip. "The other executives' wives all have significant social media followings. They can discuss art investments and wine collections and their summer homes in the Hamptons. What would you contribute? Stories about your dad's police cases? Your mom's adventures in the school cafeteria? You're not exactly Instagram material," he said. I felt like he'd slapped me. "I'm your wife, Elliot," I said, my voice breaking. "You're supposed to be proud of me, not ashamed of showing me to your followers," I said. "I was proud when we were dating," he said, staring into his glass. "Your simplicity was charming content. But I'm the financial director now. I need a wife who can be more influencer and less accountant," he continued. I went to bed crying that night, telling myself he was just stressed from work, that things would get better. But as I scrolled through his event photos one last time, seeing him posing closely with various women I didn't recognize, I knew something had broken between us, something I wasn't sure could be fixed with a perfect filter or clever caption. It was a Tuesday when my world fell apart. Elliot had texted that he was working late again on a critical proposal, and I was searching through our family cloud account for photos of Lucas to include in his preschool application. I opened our shared iPad to access the cloud storage more easily, when a notification banner flashed across the top, a WhatsApp message from someone named Vanessa P. I'd never snooped before. I trusted Elliot despite everything. But something made me pause this time. Maybe because it was the preview text that read, "Miss you already. Last night was." Or maybe because I was just tired of all the inconsistencies between his online persona and our real life. I opened the message, and that's when my heart stopped. There was an entire chat history with this Vanessa Porter, who according to her profile was Harrison Enterprises' new marketing director. My hands shook as I scrolled through hundreds of messages dating back months. Curiosity led me to our shared cloud storage, where I discovered an automatically backed up folder of Elliot's photos, ones that had never appeared on his carefully curated Instagram. There he was with a striking blonde woman at restaurants, clubs, and hotel rooms, places he told me were business meetings and corporate retreats. As I dug deeper into their conversations, my stomach turned violently. Had dinner with the accountant Cinderella again, Elliot had written alongside a selfie taken in our kitchen while I was bathing Lucas. Hashtag she can't even tell, hashtag still wearing Target brands. Vanessa's response came with a photo of a diamond bracelet, poor baby. Don't worry, I'll make it all better tomorrow. P.S. Loved my business expense gift. She'd never appreciate fine jewelry anyway. They talked about me like I was a punchline, the simple-minded wife who didn't know her husband was sleeping with someone else while posting family man content for his followers. There were pictures of extravagant jewelry he'd bought her, including the exact Cartier watch I'd hinted at wanting for my birthday but was told was too extravagant for someone who doesn't attend client meetings. I found weekend trips they'd taken while he told me he was at business conferences, the metadata on the photos revealing the truth about his whereabouts. Most painful was discovering that the same day I'd been frantically preparing Lucas's third birthday party, they were selecting champagne at a luxury hotel, with Elliot joking about escaping domestic boredom. I stayed up all night securing the evidence, backing up screenshots to my personal cloud account, saving copies of location data, downloading conversations. When Elliot finally came home at 7 a.m., his shirt wrinkled and his tie loose, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open to the photo gallery I'd discovered. Care to explain? I asked, turning the screen toward him. How could you do this to me? To our family, I asked. He laughed. Actually laughed while reaching for his phone, probably to warn Vanessa. Come on, Audrey, he said, setting his phone down after sending a quick message. Did you really think you were enough for someone in my position? Vanessa is everything you're not, sophisticated, social media savvy, exciting in public and private, he said. He looked me up and down with contempt. When's the last time you even tried to look post-worthy? I've been raising our follower count while you've been, alphabetizing Lucas's books, he said. I've been taking care of our son while you've been creating fake content and cheating, I said, fighting back tears. Look, he said, pouring himself a coffee like we were discussing the weather. Here's how this is going to work. You'll stay my wife on Instagram and at company events. It's better for my personal brand. Vanessa understands the arrangement. He took a casual sip. And hey, he added with a nasty grin, maybe I'll even find time to tag you in a post occasionally, if you're lucky. I felt something inside me harden as I closed my laptop. Without a word, I went to Lucas's room, my hands surprisingly steady as I packed a small backpack with his essentials. Lucas was still sleeping, clutching his favorite teddy bear, completely unaware that his world was about to change. I gently woke him, keeping my voice calm despite the storm inside me. Baby, we're going to visit Grandma and Grandpa for a while, okay? I whispered, helping him into his jacket. Elliot leaned against the door frame, scrolling through his phone, barely glancing up at us. You'll be back, he said flatly. Where else could you possibly go? You'd be nothing without the Harrison connection, he continued. I picked up my son, grabbed the backpack and my purse containing the hard drive with all the evidence, and walked past Elliot without acknowledgement. I disabled the location sharing on my phone before driving through tears to my parents' house in the suburbs. The digital world Elliot valued so much would become my strongest weapon. Mom opened the door in her bathrobe, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug that felt more real than anything in the luxury condo I just left behind. The divorce notification arrived a week after I left, first as rumors on social media, then as legal documents. I opened Instagram to find #HarrisonDivorce trending among the business community, with speculation about our split already circulating. The actual papers arrived the next day. Beatrice Harrison personally delivered them to my parents' front door, wearing designer sunglasses and a cashmere coat that cost more than my car. She posed for a selfie on their porch before ringing the bell, which I later saw posted with the caption "Delivering truth to the deserving." #Justice for Harrison. I always knew you weren't Instagram worthy, she said coldly, handing me the thick envelope while glancing distastefully at my parents' modest home. I'm just glad Elliot finally realized his personal brand deserves better, she added. But what came next was worse than any social media smear campaign I could have imagined. Elliot wasn't just filing for divorce, he was suing for full custody of Lucas, launching a calculated character assassination across both legal channels and social platforms. His lawyer filed papers claiming I was an unfit mother, while simultaneously, posts began appearing from anonymous sources painting a picture of me that was completely fabricated. Your Honor, Elliot's expensive lawyer said during our first hearing, her outfit as polished as her rehearsed speech, Mrs. Harrison has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior over the past year. She dramatically displayed printed screenshots of doctored photos that showed me at parties I'd never attended. She drinks heavily, creates scenes of jealousy without cause, and has become unstable, all documented by multiple witnesses on various platforms, the lawyer said. Thank God I'd secured all that digital evidence from the shared cloud account. When my lawyer presented the WhatsApp correspondence between Elliot and Vanessa, showing not only his infidelity but their strategic planning to portray me as unstable, the judge's expression changed noticeably. The metadata and timestamps on the messages and photos proved I hadn't been creating scenes. I hadn't even known about the affair until I found those messages while Elliot claimed I was stalking them. More damning were the messages where they explicitly discussed creating a narrative about my mental stability to win custody. So, Mr. Harrison, the judge said, reviewing the evidence with increasing displeasure. You claim your wife is unstable, yet these digital records show you were the one deceiving her, gaslighting her, and deliberately planning to manipulate both social and legal perceptions of her character? Elliot shifted uncomfortably in his expensive suit, frantically texting under the table. The judge awarded me primary custody of Lucas, with Elliot getting every other weekend and substantial child support payments. I also received a temporary restraining order preventing him from posting about me or Lucas on social media without explicit permission. I went back to work full-time at my accounting firm, while Mom and Dad helped with Lucas. They were amazing, turning their retirement years into full-time grandparent duty without a single complaint or Instagram post to document their sacrifice. We settled into a routine free from performative happiness and constant documentation. It wasn't luxury living anymore, but it was honest and peaceful. Then came that Saturday morning when a black Range Rover with custom license plates pulled up in front of my parents' modest house, the vehicle's arrival immediately geotagged on social media. Elliot stepped out, phone already recording, and with him was Vanessa, tall, blonde, wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly salary. I'm here to see my son, Elliot announced loudly for his Instagram story, pushing past me into the house while continuing to film. Vanessa followed, her nose wrinkled as she looked around our living room with its worn but comfortable furniture, her manicured fingers already tapping away at her phone. Oh, my God, she laughed, picking up one of Mom's cherished family photos and angling it toward her camera. This place is literally a dump. Like an actual kennel. #rescue mission, she typed. I could see she was already posting the interior of my parents' home without permission. Stop recording and watch your mouth, I warned her, reaching for her phone. She yanked it away and turned to Elliot, who was live streaming the entire confrontation to his followers. Baby, you can't let your son stay in this hovel, she stage whispered dramatically for the camera. And these old people, she gestured toward my parents who stood shocked in the doorway, they belong in a retirement home somewhere, not raising a Harrison heir. Your followers would be horrified if they knew. Get out, I said, my voice shaking with rage as I started recording on my own phone, documenting their invasion. Both of you. Get out of my parents' house right now, I shouted. Or what? Elliot sneered, making sure to capture my angry expression for his viewers. You know what, Audrey? I'm done playing nice. I'm going to take Lucas, and I'm going to destroy you online and off. You think you won in court? Just wait until my PR team is finished with you, he said. I shoved them both toward the door, making sure to stay calm enough that their footage couldn't be edited to make me look unstable. Get out before I call the police for trespassing and privacy violation, I said. Come on, baby, Vanessa purred to Elliot, tossing her hair for the camera. This place probably has fleas anyway. Hashtag lower class living, she typed again. As they drove away, already posting edited clips of the confrontation that made them look like concerned parents, I hugged my parents tight. Mom was crying, and Dad looked like he wanted to punch something. But watching that Range Rover disappear down our street, its location pin moving away on my phone's map, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry, and in the digital age, anger could be a powerful weapon when channeled correctly. The next night, Dad found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring into a cold cup of coffee while scrolling through another round of taunting comments on my social media accounts. You know, sweetheart, he said, sitting down across from me, sometimes the best defense is a good offense. He pulled out his phone and showed me a contact. Remember Gabriel Reyes? He worked with me on the Force's cyber crimes unit. Now he's a private digital investigator specializing in online fraud and identity theft. Real thorough guy, knows how to dig deep in the digital world without leaving traces. I thought about Vanessa's smug face captured in selfies taken in my parents' home, about her cruel words about my family, about all the vicious comments appearing on my profiles. Just that morning, she'd commented on my LinkedIn profile photo, "Look at this pathetic wannabe accountant. Hashtag can't even afford decent clothes, hashtag downgraded life." Elliot wasn't any better. His latest direct message had read, "Every time I pick up Lucas and see that pathetic suburban house on my location tracker, I remember why I upgraded. Enjoy playing poor with your cop daddy while I build my following. Hashtag class can't be bought. How much does Gabriel charge?" I asked Dad, feeling a spark of determination replace my exhaustion. 2 days later, I was on a secure video call with Gabriel Reyes, a serious man with kind eyes who'd known me since I was a kid playing at the police station. His home office was filled with monitors displaying data I couldn't begin to understand. Digital footprints never really disappear, he explained, especially when people are careless with their online presence. Weeks passed. I focused on work and Lucas, trying to ignore the constant stream of harassment across multiple platforms from Elliot and Vanessa. I blocked them everywhere, but they kept creating new accounts or using friends to tag me in humiliating posts. Then Gabriel called. "You need to come to my office," he said, his voice unusually animated. "You're going to want to see this in person. This goes deeper than personal harassment," he said. The digital file he opened on his large monitor was extensive, displaying multiple social profiles, bank records, and identity documents. "First off," he said, pointing to a facial recognition match between different profiles, "Vanessa Porter isn't her real name. She's using her sister's identity. Her real name is Natalie Porter." He clicked through to show me documents proving the real Vanessa Porter was an elementary school teacher in Minnesota who'd reported identity theft last year. As I read through the file, my hand started shaking. Before working at Harrison Enterprises, the woman calling herself Vanessa had operated multiple dating profiles targeting wealthy executives, moving from rich man to rich man, living off their money until they got tired of her or discovered her small-time scams. She'd had different social media personalities in different cities, always deleting accounts and disappearing just before her victims discovered they'd been conned. But what she was doing at Harrison Enterprises was far worse than romance scams. "Look at these cryptocurrency transfers," Gabriel pointed out, showing blockchain records on his screen. "She's been siphoning money from company accounts through a sophisticated digital laundering operation, small amounts that wouldn't raise red flags individually but add up to over $200,000 so far. And these messages," he showed me screenshots from a dark web forum. "She's been selling proprietary information to your in-laws' biggest competitors, product launches, merger plans, everything." I sat back, my mind racing as Gabriel explained how she'd gained access to the company's systems. The perfect, sophisticated Vanessa Porter with her curated Instagram life was nothing but a con artist, and she'd gotten her hooks into not just my husband but the entire Harrison Enterprise digital infrastructure. "There's one more thing," Gabriel said, opening another folder on his screen. "Remember that big Wagner contract Harrison Enterprises lost last month? The one that caused their stock to drop 15%? Vanessa sold the bid information to Wagner Manufacturing 3 days before the deadline. I've traced the payment to one of her offshore accounts," he explained. He showed me the transaction records, the timestamps matching exactly when the bids would have been finalized. I gathered all the evidence carefully, digital files organized by type of crime, securely backed up in multiple locations, even some printed hard copies, but I didn't make a move. Not yet. Because now I knew something Vanessa didn't. In the digital age, timing and platform are everything. Beatrice's voice note appeared in my Instagram feed Wednesday morning. "Walter's milestone celebration is Saturday, live streamed for shareholders. Lucas should be there, and since he's too young to come alone," she paused, "you're only invited as his escort. Stay in the background. Livestream begins at 7. The anniversary celebration was exactly as ostentatious as previewed. The mansion gleamed with branded decor and professional lighting while waiters wore discreet cameras. "Oh, you came," Beatrice said, perfectly positioned for cameras. "Lucas darling, kiss for the live stream," she said to Lucas. I waited with Gabriel's tablet while my son was paraded around like an accessory. Elliot entered with Vanessa, their entrance perfectly choreographed. "Everyone," he announced after a nod from the social media director. "Meet my future wife, Vanessa Porter," he said. Beatrice embraced her. "Finally, a woman worthy of the Harrison name," she said. "I feel so blessed," Vanessa said directly to camera. #blessed and grateful, she was typing. My cue. I connected my tablet to the main display. "Speaking of what people deserve, I have digital proofs about the future Mrs. Harrison." I sent the first document showing Vanessa's real identity. "Tell me, Natalie Porter, how's your sister feeling about you stealing her identity?" Color drained from her face as evidence appeared on screen. The charity gala erupted into chaos. Walter's face turned purple as he processed the evidence on screen. "Get out!" he roared at Vanessa, guests capturing every moment on their phones. "Get out before I have you arrested." "Walter, darling," she pleaded, "these are all lies. Explain how you cost us the Westlake merger worth $35 million. And feeding our secrets to Brennan Technologies." Beatrice looked up from her phone with pure venom. "You shameless con artist. You manipulated your way into our family," she said. Vanessa backed toward the door, heels clicking like a countdown. "Elliot, baby, tell them," Vanessa begged. Elliot stared at the screen showing Vanessa with multiple wealthy men, tagged with different identities. 30 seconds to leave my property," Walter said coldly. After she fled, Walter turned to his son. Hashtag fake Vanessa trended on everyone's phones. You brought her into our company, gave her access to everything. For what? Her Instagram photos? He asked to Elliot. Dad, I didn't know, Elliot said. Exactly. You didn't know. You're fired. Clear out your office tomorrow, Walter said. But Dad. That condo? Company property. Find somewhere else to stay, Walter said with a cold tone. Beatrice turned to me, her perfect facade cracking. Audrey, we owe you an apology. You saved our company with your courage. Walter nodded solemnly. We were wrong about you. You've proven more worthy of the Harrison name than others. 3 days later, Vanessa was arrested at O'Hare with designer luggage and a fake passport. The digital evidence revealed her elaborate fraud network spanning multiple identities. Federal prosecutors charged her with corporate espionage, identity theft, and wire fraud. Elliot's reputation collapsed across social media, no reputable firm willing to hire him. 1 year later, I'm in my new townhouse, modest but warm, provided by the Harrisons. The least we could do, Walter had said, handing me the keys with surprising sincerity. Lucas's superhero decorated room and my garden view office provide comfort $1 million views never did. Elliot video calls Lucas weekly from Los Angeles, never asking to speak with me. Some relationships should stay deactivated. The Harrisons themselves have changed most surprisingly. Beatrice visits weekly with thoughtful gifts and invited my parents to dinner at their estate. I watched Walter engage my father about law enforcement while Beatrice and Mom connected over gardening. Diane, Beatrice said to my mother, social mask completely dropped, you raised an extraordinary daughter. I deeply regret not recognizing her worth sooner. We always knew who Audrey was, Mom replied with quiet dignity. Sometimes it takes time to see beyond appearances, she continued. Life isn't perfect after the scandal and betrayal. I worry about Lucas growing up with a father who's just a face on screens. But seeing him with grandparents, I know we'll be okay. Last night, Lucas found our wedding photo. Do you miss Daddy? He asked. Sometimes, I admitted. Life doesn't follow expected paths. Things fall apart so better things can form. Always be true to yourself. Tucking him in, I reflected on my journey from dismissed accountant to savior of the Harrison legacy. The happy ending isn't the filtered one for online. It's messy, authentic, and better in real life.